got a really interesting title at work. Tell me about it. What do you do and everything about it?
Sure. Okay, so essentially I'm the coordinator here at Engeli Enterprise Development, and essentially I've been here for a couple of years now. But essentially what my job entails is basically just oversight of the management of all our service offerings. And what that also includes specifically is just proactively, seeking new clients, marketing of our service offerings, and just the retention of some of our existing clients, specifically in youth and entrepreneurial development space, because essentially that's what we're all about. So, yeah, that's just a long and short of it.
So it's in the youth space that you really are the human capital officer for Engeli.
Pretty much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so tell us about human capital, a little bit more about that.
So think of it as the HR function outside of generic sort of HR function within that particular company. So a lot of the work that we do specifically entails, like for example, the YES program. So what we actively do is go and seek, recruit and place youth with existing organizations in and around the Eastern Cape and other provinces for that matter. So that's just like one part of it, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And then just from an entrepreneurial perspective, quite a similar model, but we're identifying and training, aspiring entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs who've already been in business for at least 2 to 3 years and try to upskill and uplift them in any shape or form, and where we can obviously leverage access to market as well as finance for this particular entrepreneur. So it's two different facets, but they come together in one under the Human Capital Solutions division. So at the core of it, simply put, is we work with people, with individuals, and I think that's the core of what we do.
And I hear through the lines that it's about impacting those people for their future.
Definitely, to the best of our ability.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Recently you attended the next cohort of Take the Leap as an alumnus, which means that you've actually completed the course. Tell me about your experience during the course and how it affected your understanding of purpose and legacy.
So that's an interesting question, to be honest with you, because essentially when we got started, I think there was a lot of, for the lack of a better word, confusion on my part. Not necessarily understanding where this journey would essentially lead up to. And I think it took a while, to be honest, to sort of get into the hang of things. But as essentially TTL began to progress, I think things became a lot more clearer. And I think that's a result of some of the tools, that the team essentially shared with us. I think one of them was the Ikigai. And I think through that, the purpose and legacy was born. But I think just maybe to focus a bit more on the legacy statement as well. I think that was a rather interesting exercise, because if I must be honest, there were a couple of iterations that I had to go through, and the SMART method is essentially what helped me derive my legacy statement. But that was birthed from my purpose, and I think the challenge was, how do I piece all of these puzzle pieces together to make sense for future generations to come. So for me, it was a different lens to look at it from, because as you said, I completed the program as a participant or beneficiary, if you will. Now the nice part of it, it essentially helped me look at things from a different perspective, because essentially when I joined, it was about me in the sense that it's about personal growth, trying to seek clarity, trying to seek understanding, trying to seek a sense of self-confidence. But when I was invited back as alumni, I think the perspective on my side changed, because now it was no longer about me, but rather it was about the impact that I can create for others, in whatever country, in whatever capacity, Ultimately what mattered for me most is, I've got this living legacy. How can I share it on a platform such that I inspire those around me, and essentially those people will be inspired to help me achieve my living legacy. So it goes beyond me and myself, but now sort of elevates into what I would call like an ecosystem of potential partners that can help me achieve a greater purpose by uplifting others. So as I said, going back to my point, it was no longer about me, but it was about, how I can inspire others, to create impact where they are, to start exactly where they are, and to help others. But yeah, essentially, I hope that answers your question. But as I said in the beginning, I felt a bit lost, but I think towards the end, it was a nice way to close the loop and to give feedback from my own personal experience about my passion and my purpose.
So Lutho, tell us what your living legacy is, what it means, and how you believe the impact will be that you want to leave.
So that's an interesting one again, because it took a while to get to my final living legacy statement, but essentially I had a very rough draft, which I think was just to basically empower the next generation of young leaders, specifically with the focus of men. And I think Sonia basically helped me sort of refine that and obviously quantify that as well, and to add a specific timeline to that. So, which is why I mentioned the SMART method earlier. But basically now it's to basically empower and to enable the next generation of young leaders, specifically in South Africa, with the core focus of men. And I'll tell you why specifically men. And I think that's predominantly linked to my own upbringing and my own experience through mentorship. And that's part of my living legacy that I forgot, that how I plan to enable and to empower the next generation of young leaders is specifically through skills development and mentorship. Now, those are two different aspects to it. So for me, how it was birthed is, I'm no different to any sort of black child that's out there, product of a single mother, and essentially there was no father figure in the household. And I think as one begins to grow, you begin to notice, for lack of a better word, voids within yourself that you believe would have been filled if you had a father figure within the household who would have at least been there to show you the way and sort of mentor you in a way. And I think, luckily for me, when I started working, I was blessed to have met Ricardo, who is my current boss, but over the years became, for me at least, a lot more than just a boss, but rather a mentor. And to some degree filled the void that should have been filled by sort of a father figure in some obscure way. So yeah, to cut a long story short, that's essentially where it was birthed, and I realized the importance of basically giving the next generation of men some sense of hope, some sense of care and compassion, showing them compassion, and basically helping them rediscover themselves and build a great sense of self-confidence, because I'm a firm believer that if basically you instill those basic principles within especially a boy child, wouldn't be having issues such as GBV and femicide, and amongst many others. And I think for me, that's why it's so important that we basically give back to the next generation of young men and help them to stay on track and to stay on path, not to deviate from what their purpose is. And I think that's exactly what TTL did for me, helped me unpack my purpose in order to derive my living legacy from that. As I mentioned earlier, the framework itself and the tools used helped me unpack. It was something that was already inherent, or something that I would say was dormant, that was within me. But the TTL program basically helped me unlock it, to unpack that for myself in a way that I wouldn't have imagined. So yeah, I've got greater sense of gratitude to the TTL program, as unpromising as it may have been in the beginning. I do definitely feel that at the end of it, I walked away with a lot more pride and a great sense of joy that gave me purpose. So, yeah.
So, would you say that Take the Leap helped you move out of doing an educational exercise into applying life skills into yourself to develop that purpose? Well, not develop, to understand your purpose, and then develop a legacy that you want to.
No, definitely. As I said, I think those life skills, once again, are unfortunately things that were not taught within school. And I think programs like TTL basically help focus on those particular life skills that basically just help refine who you already were and amplify who you were to become the best version of yourself, such that it makes it easier for you to then live out your living legacy, which obviously the importance thereof is to impact those around you. And I think that's where the key is. So those life skills are utmost important. Yeah.
So Lutho, you've spoken about Take the Leap. Is it a program that you would recommend to the youth of South Africa, and why?
No, definitely. The TTL program is something I most definitely recommend to the youth of South Africa, and I think specifically black youth, because I think I understand some of the prehistoric sort of issues that are prevalent within the black community. So, and the reason why I say that, I think the TTL program will help the black child view themselves differently, and essentially will help unlock their own potential. Because I think I touched on it earlier. I think a lot of potential lies dormant, and because of not having exposure to the right environments, not having the adequate support system around them, a lot of that talent or undiscovered potential dies. And I think that's where the sadness for me lies. So the TTL basically will help unpack and unravel their own true potential by developing some of those life skills. And I think self-confidence is a big part of it. And I think one of the benefits actually of being part of the program is you're opened up to a community of partners and stakeholders that essentially help you through your journey. So yes, the program might only be 8 weeks in its entirety, but it becomes a 12-month journey, a hand-holding journey, if you will, where essentially they hold you accountable, to be honest, to what you initially said you would do. But more than that, it's just to help you along the way, because we understand that in order to make it in life, you cannot go alone, you need to go with others. So it's a brilliant sort of program that exposes you to the right environment, to the right people, and essentially to community. So I think definitely, going back to the question, I think youth would most certainly derive benefit from the program, but you get out of it what you put in. And I think it's important that I mention that. Your perspective going into the program is also important. Given that, yes, it can change and probably will change, to be honest with you. But as I said, what you put in is what you will get out. So make the best of it. If you find yourself in a position where you are given the opportunity to be part of the TTL program, I'd urge you to essentially make the most of it. And what they will get out of it is invaluable. If you will, no amount of...
Stop there. Stop just a second.
Value spot 5.
So yeah, no amount of money can essentially fill that. I think, as I said, what you will derive for it is invaluable. Completion certificates will not do it. It's essentially what you walk away with over a lifetime, and I think that's the key. Going back to my point earlier, what you put in is what you'll get out, and your perspective will determine what path lies ahead.
So you say what you put in, you put out. So if you walk with a certificate, that's not the end. It's how you apply everything you've learned to fulfill that legacy that you set yourself.
Exactly.
And that's the real journey. And for that, you've got a whole community. That's what I understand.
No, of course. And once again, I think how proactive you are in being part of that community and actually giving back. And I think that's part of the reason why when Adol came calling, came knocking on the door, I essentially jumped on opportunities to give back because I too was given the opportunity by you. And I think it's only right to kind of thank you for the opportunity that you afforded me at the time. As I said, I didn't know where it was going to land up, but look at where I am now and how much I've grown in the past couple of months. And I think that's essentially the flowers that I pass over to you, Terence, and to the TTL team. So once again, thank you. Mostly appreciated.
Thank you very much, Lutho. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and good luck for your future.
Thank you very much, Terence.
I hope to see. I look forward to seeing that legacy make a difference in our country.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Terence.
Thank you.